Ooh. Hey everyone, happy Sunday. We have a river rant coming in right now. I just wanted to make sure it was live where all the places that we go live. For those of you guys that are joining me on Facebook, just so you know, Facebook doesn't give restream permissions to post your name. So if you want, go to chat.restream.io/Facebook. It'll give Restream permission for me to see who's saying hi. Now I do have my groups open. So I see it was Ann Thompson. Good morning, Ann. I love you, girly. So I'm going to go ahead and get rocking and rolling. The only thing is I'm trying this other, bless me, okay? Like I'm trying very hard to do these little things. It's a little nerve-wracking. So it's so hard when I'm trying to like do all these fancy things, right? So we're going to just do the very best that we can. I'm going to make sure that this is working properly. Okay. Fingers crossed. We're going to try this out. No promises, right? No promises. Sorry, trying this new note taker. I wish it would just take. I think I'm going to have to work with it later. Boo. It's not letting me do what I want to do. That's fine. I'll do that later. Can't have it all, right? So let's go ahead and talk about what I want to talk about today. And I'm going to make sure that I take a note that we're at about 7 minutes. And that's where we're starting. So what today's river rant is about is that I was just in Facebook, you know, me just strolling Facebook, like strolling through Facebook rather. And there was a comment talking about Animal Behavior College. Now, as you guys may or may not know, I've done a whole video on Animal Behavior College. Not really saying if it's a good program or a bad program, but if it works for you as a potential employer. And I think there's just so much misunderstanding about being an employer and what does that mean. I feel like so often The industry just says things like, just be an employer, like just hire a bather. Like it's so easy, right? Like you should just be able to magically just be able to go out there and hire someone willy-nilly. And what I noticed is that there's all these common threads that people are posting when it comes to saying like what makes them a good employer, right? Because there's only two ways to get an employee, right? It's either build your own from scratch, right? Or bribe someone enough that they're going to come over to your side of the table. And that's not easy, right? It's not easy to have somebody come over, right? Because if they're happy in their job, if they're stable in their job, they like the clientele, right? They're pretty cozy. And if they're really cozy, why would they then turn around, right? And for better, for worse, leave their comfy, cozy job and come to yours? There has to be something better on the other side. The grass has to be greener. Now, what Gen Z and millennials want is generally not more money. It's not. There's this huge lie that, they only want money. I can't offer them enough money. No, first of all, you can't, because if you offer someone more money, they will just go somewhere and get more money, right? I remember having an employee tell me they were going to leave me over $1 an hour. And I said, if you'd let me know, I would give them the $1 an hour. And they were very right. They said, well, if you were going to give me more than another $1 an hour, you should just give it to me. And so that's when I realized that it doesn't matter how much more you give people for dollar amounts, they'll always want more. Some of that is lack of budgeting. Some of that is just for better, for worse, right? Having people that really aren't, they always want more, right? It's just the groomer mentality. So let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about employees and what we can do about that. So I got in the mail, and I wanted to do this rant anyway. So even if you guys can see, it's probably backwards because my camera's mirrored. Let me see if I can unmirror my camera. It'll be a little trippy for a second. Whoa. So this said Head Start is hiring. So I got this randomly in the mail. It literally says postal customer. It's not even addressed to me. They have no idea who I am. It's literally, they bought a bunch of addresses and sent it to me, right? So they said Head Start is hiring, $1,000 sign-on bonus offered. Teacher, teacher assistants, family advocate, therapeutic integration specialist, substitutes. So send your resume, go hire, right? This is Head Start. Join our team. Start your rewarding career path with East Bay Community Action Program's Head Start. We're seeking passionate individuals who want to make a difference in children's lives. You'll be part of supportive work environment with competitive ways, tuition reimbursement, and a competitive benefit packages. So they deal with children from birth to age 5. Now, when we think about it, right, when we think about when we're offering things to people, our jobs are not, they're more skilled, I would agree, but they're not harder than taking care of infant children. So this company is offering $1,000 sign-on bonus, tuition reimbursement, right, and benefits. That's a lot. That's a lot to compete with somebody who is not, right. They're not if they're not invested in a grooming career, we can't compete with them. Also, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A recently was in the drive-thru because I'm bad. They're offering their key holders where I'm at, not managers, key holders, $30 an hour, right? Plus benefits, and they offer all of these other things, right? We are now competing with McDonald's, with Chick-fil-A, with other places. The higher minimum wage goes up, the harder it is for us to compete, right? Because for better or for worse, when you look at this, you realize that this used to be considered a shit job, right? You'd be like, I don't want to be a daycare worker. They make no money. There's no benefits. There's no this, there's no that. And now they're doing that, right? The reason nobody wanted to work at McDonald's is because it was terrible pay. There was no benefits, right? And now they're getting those things. And we're a skilled labor. We are a skilled trade and we need to be treated as such. And what I'm finding is that a lot of employers almost want to hire McDonald's workers. They want to hire Chick-fil-A workers, right? And they want to treat them as such. And and then they're wondering why they can't find them. Now, I'm not saying they're treating them poorly. I'm not saying they're intentionally doing these things. So I'm going to give you one of my silly dating analogy. Forgive me. Forgive me. It's Sunday morning. So as somebody who's been slogging myself through the dating pool. And first of all, I'm not everyone's soulmate either. I'm perfectly fine not being everyone's soulmate. But what was really interesting was that I found that a lot of the things that men were saying really didn't resonate with me, right? So they would be things like, oh, I have a car. I'm like, well, if you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, I hope you have your own car. We're in an area where having a car is fairly normal. I have a job. Okay, so you have a job and you have transportation to have a job. It is not uncommon for somebody who's 30, 40, or 50 in my area to live at home or have roommates. So they'd be like, I have my own place. It's like, okay, but do you own that place or do you, do you rent that place? And, are you spending a lower amount of your money in order to save up and buy your own place, right? So basically, they're like, I'm nice, I have a car, I have a job. And it's like, okay, is that it? And they're like, well, yeah, like I have a car, I have a job, and so I deserve you as my girlfriend. And it's just so interesting because, again, it's not about the money, right? It's not about having someone be rich, right? So, again, in this analogy, you, as an employer, you're saying, I pay W-2, I have nice clients, I'm a nice employer. You should just come work for me. It's like, okay, well, so does everyone else. And you might be like, well, no, there's lots of 1099. And that's like that guy saying, well, no, there's lots of really crappy men out there. It's like, okay, but I'm not looking, you are not competing with the crappy. If you are a good employer, right? And I mean good as in standard, right? The standard as an industry should be you pay W-2, you pay a livable wage, you're kind to your employees, right? These should be normal, standardized things. And as Gen Z is coming up into the grooming industry, they're not used to all of the potential problems that a lot of us millennials, our Gen X, or our boomers dealt with, right? You can't verbally abuse your employees anymore. Like I remember it was very common 15 years ago that your employer would basically verbally abuse you, right? That's not so common anymore. And people aren't going to stand for it. They're going to leave because they have options. So when you're, standard and you're pointing down to what we would consider below standards, that doesn't make me more likely to want to work with you. It makes me go, well, yeah, this is what I deserve. And so if your job is either to build a groomer, if you're going to have employees, you're going to need to build a groomer or basically bribe them away from somebody else, right? So if you think about that, right, it's basically like you either need to take someone who's single and tell them all the reasons that you're wonderful and why they should consider investing in this, or you need to have somebody who's already in a relationship and basically be so amazing they break up with their current employer and leave them for you. Now, there's some wackiness when it comes to the relationship analogy. So, I apologize. I'm not saying be a homewrecker, etc. But a lot of you guys don't realize when you are bribing these groomers away from their employers, you essentially are an employer homewrecker. And that's okay. You know why? Because again, maybe that wasn't the right working relationship for them. Maybe they are going to be significantly happier with you. But that said, you have to be prepared to do that. And if you can't, if you're just a standard kind of grooming business, then you have to get really good at something. Now, as someone who's been really, single for a long time, And a lot of that honestly is by choice at this point, just because the dating pool is very difficult, the same as the employment market. And it's been really nice to get to know me, right? And I almost feel like I wish a lot of you guys as employers would really take a step back and get to know you as a business, as a boss, right? As a leader. Who are you as a leader? What do you want in these relationships, both with your clients and then with that you need to grow, right? A lot of us get stuck in the scenario where we start by having a relationship with our clients, right? This very one on one relationship. And then when we bring in this other employer, I'm sorry, when we bring in this other groomer and we're now an employer, we have to have the clients attached to the business, right? They can't be attached to me, the boss, me, the groomer owner. I need them to be attached to the business. That way they know anyone who comes into the business you can trust. Doggy daycares do this very, very well, right? You can meet the daycare owner, you can trust them, you can like them, but anyone who watches your dog, you trust, right? So this is again, right, where you also notice, right, that that person in that doggy daycare, they're going to have other people handling your dog, and you're not going to meet them all, and that's perfectly normal. As a grooming industry, we need to shift towards that. I'm going to butcher your name. Is it Mayra or Myra? I'm so sorry. I love that. That's a beautiful name. So many Facebook ads only say, "Hey, we're looking to hire," but they don't even list location and other basic info. Someone who's looking for a job. Absolutely. It's something that I actually talk about in depth in the hire masterclass. The way that we do hiring ads is just ridiculous as an industry. They're either like super, super sticky cutesy, like you see corporate doing this. It's almost offensive the way that a lot of corporates talk about our industry. It's like, haven't you always wanted to make poodles runway ready? It's like, we're a skilled trade that deserves respect. Or it's like, yo, we're hiring. I mean, again, right? We want to create basically a dating profile, right? And those are hard too, because some people want to know a lot of information about you. Some people just want to know the highlights. It gets really tricky, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I agree. I think that when we're creating these if you notice too, and the reason I use this is because this is actually really good. Someone was paid to create this, and you can tell the copy on this is really solid. Because if you notice, when you look at the average grooming for hire post, we want to list out everything they have to do. It's like, how do you feel like picking up poop? How do you feel about being bitten? Like we're almost talking them out of being in our industry. And I also see that same weird dynamic in general. I see so often that groomers will complain about how awful and miserable grooming is and then be like, why can't I hire anyone? It's like, well, which is it? Is this a grueling, difficult, awful job that no one should ever join? Or is it a rewarding career? You can't live in both worlds. Now you can say like being a mom, like a human mom, right? My sister has an almost 2-year-old. That kid is just a lot. Yes, it is difficult, but if you notice the way you frame it, you're going to scare people away. Like if you listen to people, and again, no disrespect, you do you. If you listen to people that do not want children, that talk about why they don't want kids, it's the same or similar language than somebody who is talking, about the grooming industry, right? And the people that are saying they don't want kids, they don't want kids, right? They're explaining why they don't want kids, and they're almost trying to convince others of why they shouldn't maybe want kids. And I think too often the way we talk about our industry, and it is a weird dynamic, right? Because it is really hard. It is really this. Okay, well, if it's all those things, then why would you want someone to come into this industry not get benefits, and make the same as somebody managing a Chick-fil-A, or not even managing, just being a key holder at Chick-fil-A. Why would you do that? So you have to be very careful, right? You have to find that balance, and it's not easy because, again, over and over and over again, we keep creating these scenarios that bite ourselves in the foot. So in this ad, it talks about all the benefits, right, of working for the company, not why you shouldn't or what disqualifies you, right? And we do get a lot of people interested in becoming a groomer, and they don't understand. But that's, again, where we can use certain tools to our advantage. Things like Animal Behavior College. Now, I don't particularly love the program, and I don't know enough about the program to give an honest review of it. But I will say this is that you get over 100 hours for free trying someone out. You get to train them your way. You get to bring them into the fold as a recipe groomer. And then if it doesn't work out, you don't have to hire them. And I think I've done the math before, but really quickly. So I want to say, and I'm hoping I'm not lying here, I believe it's 150 hours worth of grooming. So at 150 hours, right? And my state is $13 an hour minimum wage. So if I were to pay someone 150 hours at $13 an hour, that is $1,950. So I get to try somebody out for $1,950. And if they don't work out, I don't have to hire them. Otherwise, even at minimum wage, I would have had to hire them. I would have still paid that money, right? I would have still paid that money. So this gives us an opportunity to do that. And on the flip side, right, we get to be able to try out being a teacher and being an employer. I think a lot of us are very confused on our long-term goals with hiring and managing a staff. I think it's never been a better time to consider solopreneurship, at least until you really get your clientele down, whether that's in a membership model, whether that is building a clientele that trusts you, as in the business, like I trust the business, not necessarily personally you. I think that's a great opportunity. So that's kind of my thoughts. And I'm going to just double check to see if I had any more thoughts that I had posted. Because again, this person, I think, is going through what most of you guys are going through if you're looking for employers, right? She's saying the only thing is I want consistency. I don't want high turnover. I want my clients to get to know and trust someone, not changing people all the time. Hesitant going through a few people to find the right person. And then again, that's what it takes to find the right person. So in that analogy, right, of the dating, it's kind of like if you had your parents meet every person you dated. And if you guys that did not magically meet the love of your life when you were 15, I'm unfortunately one of those people, you did have to date a lot of people to find the right person, right? You have to. So for every 10 dates, right? 10 dates, I'm going to get one person, right? Who I want to go on a second or a third date. And sometimes it's less, but that's because I've invested a lot of time in the beginning of it, right? And that's your hiring process. If I match someone on a dating app and I spend 2 months talking to them, right? And then we go on a first date, that first date has significantly higher likelihood of having a second or a third date. Absolutely. But I've also invested all of that time, right? So that's where the Savvy Groomer, we teach you guys a lot of hiring techniques in the Hire Masterclass. We literally teach you, you should have, there's a 4-step process. You need to have a 15-minute phone call. Do you actually like this person? We need to have an in-person on neutral territory. We need to have a skill assessment, and then we need to have a working interview. And when you go through all of that, yes, you will have significantly less turnover. Why? Because you've invested a lot of time in hiring that person. So if you want less turnover, you have to invest a lot of time and energy into the hiring process. And I think a lot of you guys are like, but I don't want to do all that. It's like, okay, well, then you got to hire them and find out the hard way, right? There's just too many ways of how to deal with that. So, good morning. If I don't see your name, if you see here, it just says Facebook user. So, if you want, go to chat.restream.io/Facebook, and then I will be able to actually see your name because I love to say hi to you guys and I can't always see you. Boo. And I'm going to check to see if you're on Facebook. Oh, it's Kathy. Good morning, Kathy. And I'm trying to keep track of things on my Facebook. It's so hard when it's just me and it's not my staff. So, right. And so one thing I had mentioned to this person is, doing exit interviews. So if you're going to do an exit interview, what happened there? What was that conversation? Why did they leave? Did they leave you over more money? Did they leave you over the grooming industry just wasn't for them? Did they leave because, maybe the perfect clientele that you have is not their soulmate clients, right? I remember, many moons ago, and it's not legal, obviously, but I worked for a woman for free for 6 months after grooming school because I needed to gain some skill set. And all she did was poodles and schnauzers. It's all she did. She did poodles and English saddle cuts and continentals, and she hated schnauzer cuts. Not schnauzer cuts. She did schnauzer hand strip clients. So I got really good at hand stripping and I got really good at following grooming patterns, and I hated it. I'm like, I just want to zone out, do one length all over, not sit there and go, okay, how high should I put this line? What's the dog's conformation? I didn't like it at all. It was not for me. Right. So it had nothing to do with her. It had everything to do with me, and that I wasn't the right fit for that business. Right. And again, sometimes it takes time to find that out. It's like dating. You might not find out for 6 months that this person is not the right person for you. So when we go on an exit interview, was it just I didn't ask the right questions during the interview? Was it that they changed and they grew and they learned something different, right? And that can happen 1,000%. I think one thing we have to remember is that it takes 2 years to build a solid groomer who can be by themselves and we can trust them, right? With not anything, but most things, like most things, depending upon how much you've invested in them. But they leave after 5. The average person in our industry leaves after 5 years. Now, I don't know if that is from the time of bathing or if that's the time of finished grooming, but that's the statistic that I found. Also, 70% of the grooming industry is under the age of 40. I'm going to say that again. 70% of the grooming industry is under the age of 40. How many of you guys think that 30% is a majority of grooming business owners? 30% of our industry is over the age of 40, which means that, and again, I don't have the stat of how many of those people are business owners. But what I will tell you is that if it's less than half, I would be shocked. Most of the people I know that are over 40 and they are still grooming either do it as a hobby or they own their own business. I don't meet a ton of women over 40 who don't want to be business owners, in the sense that they're like, listen, if I'm getting older and I don't want to groom as much, I'm not going to make as much, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they open their own shop. So if your goal is to have low turnover, well, okay, well, unless if you catch someone when they're 18, 19, 20, right? The reality is that you're not going to have them forever. You might have them for 5 years if they decide to stay in the industry, or maybe you'll have them for 10 years before they decide to go out on their own. Maybe after 3 years, they decide to go out on their own, right? So Caxer, I love the first consultation. I appreciate better explaining the value. Sometimes I don't explain it well. So what I'm going to do is, so tomorrow, this is a river rant, and I know I didn't change the description. I apologize. So what I would love to do is I'm actually going to save that and I'm going to use that for tomorrow. So I'm actually going to send that to myself. That way I have it. Because I am excited about happy hour tomorrow and I have to make a post. Don't worry. But yeah, so from there, they were saying that they taught their clients to trust, I'm sorry, I told them to trust the business. They had just opened up less than a year, about a year and change ago. Share space was really small to not bring someone on. I really don't suggest you get a bigger space until either you have a solid membership, and a membership has a contract. So you have guaranteed money coming in, right? Or you have risen your prices significantly higher than the majority of the groomers around you, right? Because then when you go to add somebody else, again, I can either use money or I can use like perfect clientele. Like everyone's on 4 weeks. I don't groom any aggressive dogs. I don't groom any dogs over 20 pounds. Everyone comes consistently on a 4-week basis or less. Like these are ways that we start getting someone to be like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of grooming doodles. So I'm going to go to this person's salon. Or, I'm getting paid 50%, but the average groom is $50. At 50%, so I'm making $25 an hour. This person's offering me $40 an hour. Once we have, the most money, and if you move into a larger area, you need to be able to sustain it by yourself. So if everyone does quit, you are in a perfect position to be like, well, that sucks. Oh, well, I'll figure it out and keep working. Your business is not really stable with employees till you have 3. It's not. So once you have 3 employees, right? If one quits, you can spread the work out between the 2 and potentially you to help pick up the slack, right? When you have 2, again, it might seem that way, but if one quits, now it's just you and the other employee. Now the other employee is going to have a ton of things dumped on. But when it's 2, it's a team effort. We're working together. I'm so sorry through this time. During this time, you're going to get a pay raise or blah, 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 blah. I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to give you guys extra time off, whatever it is, right? We can add that value to them. But until there's 3, it's really tough, right? Because again, if someone is going on a 2-week vacation, right? You need to shuffle those things around. And there's lots of ways that we teach how to get people to give you more notice for time off. But as a grooming industry, we discourage people from taking time off, right? And that's got to end. And a lot of that comes down to, if you as an owner like to plan your entire life and like to plan a year in advance, you're like, oh, well, I book all my clients a year in advance. For someone like me, that actually is a negative. Like I am working on going to Hershey, right? And that's super last minute. That's like 2 weeks from now, not even. And so if I had my entire life planned for a year in advance, I'd be like, oh, no big deal. Like I'm trying to create flexibility in my life. And when I'm creating flexibility in my life, what's going to happen there, right? What's going to happen is that I'm going to have to go, okay, how do I then situate all of this, right? And so I value flexibility. So you might be trying to say, oh, look at all these wonderful things my clients are booked out for the year. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't really benefit me. If anything, it actually hurts me, because if I want to take a week off, now you're upset because you want me to work this and these clients are already booked. So, and we talked about this a lot in the relationship marketing class at Super Zoo, right? We talked about making sure with our soulmate clients and things like that. And she's saying she's got this larger space, and and again, I feel like it's like I have a job and a car, and I'm a nice guy, right? So it's, I have a great setup. I have great setup, good clients, great setup, good clients. Okay. That's subjective, right? It's kind of like when a guy says, I have a great job. I'm like, okay, but what's a great job? Like I think my job's pretty great. I think grooming is a great job. I don't think, I don't like dating teachers. Why? Because I like freedom and flexibility. And I had a long-term relationship with a teacher at one point, and it was so frustrating because I'd be like, let's go away. And he couldn't go away. It was like awful. It was like, you have predetermined times when you can go away. So if we found like a really good deal on a last minute cruise ship, Or even if we found like off season anything, that was not allowed. It was like school vacations and that. And I'm not saying he's not a great person, he can't overcome things like that. But what I'm saying is, like, as a general rule, I don't like dating people who can't have freedom and flexibility, right? So again, if he's like, oh, I have a great job, I have a stable job, I'm a teacher, I get the summers off, and I have this. Yes, to somebody, right, who also has a less flexible job, that's an amazing benefit. To me, it's a hindrance, right? So that's always subjective. I maintain my equipment. Again, that's like saying I have a job in a car. That should just be standard, right? And I think, again, being like, well, you know, well, I don't, I'm not massively obese. It's like, okay, well, I'm glad you take care of yourself, but I don't expect someone I date to be massively obese, right? I'm not saying I'm against people who are obese. What I'm saying is that, if you're trying to use basic standard things as why you deserve a relationship, right? Or deserve an employee, we have to be really hard on ourselves and say, you know what? These should just be standard. Or I'd be like, I don't cheat. It's like, okay, well, I don't date cheaters, right? So I think a lot of times we're saying things and we're trying to add value, but if we put in the context of guys asking us out, we'd be like, oh my God. Well, of course, like, right? Like, the guy says, well, I don't cheat. It's like, okay, well, that should be normal. It should just be a given that people don't cheat on their partners, right? Unless if you're in a poly relationship, and that's a whole nother can of worms. Doing W-2, which you have to do W-2, but she can't offer PTO or benefits at this time, right? But I feel like the right people, the room for growth is there. Right. So again, it's kind of like the guy who's like, listen, I have a good job, I have a good car of this. If you want to sacrifice with me, maybe it'll all work out. Now, as a woman in my 30s, I have dated a lot of people's potential. It's an unfortunate truth. When I say I have a potential, I mean it. It's not really fair for us to tell our employees that they should work harder to build our business. I have this amazing student who we've been going through her thing. So she is a manager, a grooming salon manager out of that office. And it's an unfortunate manipulation that we sometimes do in the grooming industry. It's not intentional, it just happens. So in this instance, she's a manager at a grooming salon in a vet office, and they basically said, hey, you get to run this as your own business, but you don't get any of the benefits of running it as your own business, right? Which is the first no, we don't do that, right? And then she did, but I don't suggest you do that. And they basically put all the decisions on her, but she doesn't have any, like, so if there's something where they're like, for instance, like pricing, if she's like, okay, then I want to price this way, they're like, oh, I don't know about that, right? So she has all the responsibility, not all the decision making, but all the decision making that they are going to allow her to have. And they have this feeling of like, you're helping build this business. And it's manipulative. It's manipulative for us to tell our employees that they're building our businesses. Now, does what they do matter and contribute? Absolutely. Absolutely. What you do matters. But at the end of the day, you are not a business. You're not a part of my business. Like, you are an employee. And that's really important. You can definitely be friendly with your employees, but stop telling them they're like family. They're not like family. If they died in a car crash, you're not going to adopt their children. If they get hooked on heroin, you are not going to send them to rehab and guarantee them and pay their bills while they're getting rehab, right? The majority of us say things that are unintentionally manipulative. And I don't think we mean to. I think we're just being told that way, right? And there's definitely a lot of situations where we are putting ourselves in a place where we have been told these things, right? It's almost like a cycle of abuse, right? If you work hard on my business, then it will benefit you. That's really not fair to say. I think you should just do your job, right? I think that we need to stop as an industry telling people to go above and beyond. Our industry is so burnt out. They're so burnt out. If you want to build your business, you build your business. Don't build your business off on the backs of hardworking people. At the same time, right? At the same time, I'm sorry, my thing keeps going off. At the same time, we need to honor and give our employees really great, whatever that is. And remember, benefits aren't always as simple as higher pay. They're not always as simple as the most money. Just same as like you ever heard it's so funny, like someone was, I'm going to sound awful, but just being real here. I was talking to a guy and it just wasn't going to work out. Like it just, like I've done a lot in my life. I've done a lot. And this guy is very much like the kind of person that finished college and then kind of just watched a whole lot of TV, like did the bare minimum, and it just wasn't going to work out. And he used this phrase. He's like, "Oh, you want like someone with six figures, a six pack, and something else." Like it was just like this really like intense feeling. And I was like, "Nah, would I prefer somebody who makes a similar amount of money than I do? Yeah, because I live in an expensive area and I don't want to pay all the bills. If I wanted to pay all the bills, I would just stay single. And do I want somebody who's as successful as I am? Yeah, I do, right? I want somebody who's as accomplished as I am. But I don't value working out to a six pack. Listen, if they have it, that's nice, but it's not something I bring to the table. So it's not something I expect. So when we're talking about our employees, right, or potential employees, we need to ask ourselves, what do we bring to the table? And then what are we expecting? If we make 30 grand a year, in this dating analogy, if we make 30 grand a year, we live at home, right? And I always talk about the hot pocket guy, right? I have very good gaming friends, male gaming friends that are like this, right? So you make 30 grand a year, you live with your mom, and you don't physically take care of yourself. Then we would tell that guy, you can't expect then to marry, right, Heidi Klum or insert, I don't like the Kardashians, but if he's like, oh, I really want a woman who's exactly like Kylie Jenner, who's a billionaire, who, has like a whole montage of like body stuff, right? We'd be like, well, that's really unrealistic. Maybe like get down here, right? So that's where we do have to gently set our standards, right? And that's where like I feel like we're all as a collective, the dating world is really mirroring the employment world, right? Because right now a lot of us are in that, you know what? I either want someone to my standards or I want to be single. Right? I think I'm seeing so much of that in the grooming industry right now. And I think it's a really healthy place to be because there's not a lot of people in the dating pool, the employment pool right now, right? You either need to invest in someone knowing that it might not work out. That might be in the dating analogy, me being like, hey, dude, who's making 30 grand and lives with your parents and, is not in the best health. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to invest in helping you get a better job and, let's get you your own apartment and let's, build you up. Right. But I need to be prepared that I might build up that potential person only for them to then leave me once they become higher value. They might leave me and go be with somebody else. And that's exactly what I'm seeing happening in the employment world. And a lot of you guys don't want that, but we don't own people. And we need to make sure that if we're going to do that, we're doing that mindfully, right? I wouldn't invest in a guy like that because I would feel resentful. And I think that's really kind of sad. I should be a better person, whatever. But I know myself and I honor myself. And I'm like, you know what? If I did that, I would feel so used. So I'm not ready to invest in someone like that. If you trained someone who's a groomer from the ground up and they left, would you feel like, wow, I'm so happy for them? I honor their journey. I'm so happy to be a part of it. Or would you feel really resentful? If you feel really resentful and really angry, then you're not in an emotional, mental place as a leader to then build your own people and grow your own people. And I wouldn't suggest doing that, right? On the flip side, right? Karmically, if you're going to bribe people away from leaving their current grooming business, right? Then don't be shocked when they do the same thing to us. I think that's kind of where we're at in the industry. There aren't really groomers just floating around who have no job. I don't know a single groomer who's unemployed. Do you? Do you know a single groomer, unless if they came off an injury, unless if they're right out of school or came off an injury? I don't know anyone who either doesn't own their own business or doesn't have a job. I don't know a single. I wonder what the grooming unemployment rate is. I bet it's less than 1%. I don't personally, I mean, I talk to thousands of groomers. I don't know anyone who's like, oh man, I need a job and I can't find one. No one, because they can find a job anywhere, right? And they're a hot commodity right now. So consider that. So going back really quick to asking people to grow our business for us. You offer them a job, you pay them a fairly livable wage, and you get them in touch with your mission. I do want that. I want you to get them in touch with your mission. I want you to get them in touch with all of that, 1000%. But at the same time, I also want you to be okay with the fact that you can't ask people, right? You can. That's not true. You can. Let me clarify. You can. But I do think it's manipulative. Like even my staff, right? It's like, yes, we are friendly. Yes, we are connected. Yes, you are very important to me. But if you stop doing your job, you will not work here. That's not family. Family is if you don't work, I will probably take care of you, right? There's been instances with my family where, maybe they move in and they don't pay rent. That's not going to happen with your employee, right? There might be instances where you have to step in and go above and beyond. You're not going to do that with your employees. And I do think it's emotionally manipulative to tell them that. I think it needs to be like, listen, I really value you as an employee. We can be incredibly friendly if you choose to be. But at the end of the day, if this employment situation doesn't work for you anymore, and if at the end of the day, for whatever reason, you're not working out for me, then we need to honor that. It's not fair to ask for them to invest and build in a business that they could then be cut from. Right? That's really not fair. So I will just stop that little rant there. And she was saying she feels like she has a good relationship with her clients, that they will trust who I bring in, but I don't want to lose that trust with high turnover of going through multiple students. Most clients would be new clients, so they don't really know or attached. And this is another thing I see that happens with employees. You should not be adding new customers until you hit 3. Until between 2 and 3 is when you start adding new customers. Because in a perfect world, when you start taking on an employee, you are now in a different role. You go from being a groomer to being a manager and a leader, right? Because if that high turnover, so if that groomer leaves, you can immediately step in and take over those clients. If that groomer comes in drunk, if that groomer comes in high, if that groomer comes in and you get this sickening feeling in the pit of your stomach, like you don't know why, but you don't trust this person, you need to be able to send them home. Especially if you're mobile, but even in a shop, right? You need to be able to have them leave. And so all they're doing is they're taking on your clients. Now that said, most of us that own our own shop are going to be more productive than the average groomer. I don't know why that is. It just is. I am the exception. I am a very lazy groomer. So, most of us that have been grooming, I've been grooming, I don't want to talk about it, more than 10, less than 20, feeling old. When you look at that, right, Gen Z expects to groom 4 to 5 small dogs a day in an 8-hour period. So if you're a normal groomer who is a boomer, Gen X, some of our older, I'm an older millennial, I'm almost Gen X, right? You're used to grooming 6 to 8, right? So if they're expecting to groom 4 or 5 and you're already grooming 6 to 8, you're not adding new clients. They're taking those clients, right? And you're investing in the next 90 days to make sure that that's running really well, right? Running really well, right? And then we're going to take the following when we get the second employee, right? We're going to start, we're going to get everyone situated because there's going to be call outs. Maybe groomer number 1 cancels, whatever. And that's realistically a 6-month situation there. Now you can hire 2 people at once and it can be a 90-day, but it's going to be at least 90 days. But realistically, it's going to be 6 months to a year to hire those 2 employees. And then from there, right from there, we have this, 6 months to a year of getting those 2 employees really locked and loaded, making sure they're going to stay, they're taking over this current clientele, right? I'm maybe losing some money, right? And that's what sucks. That's why we have to keep our payroll at 30% or less, because I might lose some money during that time. But when I add in the third person and I start doing consultation grooms as the business owner, now I'm making sure that everyone is good. So 3 is about where you need to be, right? But it's not 3 people with 6 to 8 dogs for the most part. Most Gen Z is going to groom 4 to 5 dogs. It's small dogs a day. It's changing rapidly. I used to call, if you look at some of my videos, it used to be like, oh, I'm the lazy groomer. I want to groom 5 small dogs a day. That is the norm now. That is the norm. And I think too, we want to have employees with quote unquote work ethic. Okay, well, what is work ethic? Is work ethic working more? Is work ethic working consistently? What is work ethic to you? Again, I see a lot of Gen X, a lot of boomers, a lot of older millennials saying, well, they have to do 8. Okay, well, then you need to hire somebody, right, who will do that, or you need to make it really easy for them to do that. Because right now, again, if you just have a car and a job and you're just standard, they can literally go anywhere else. So what can we do? And that is training, right? So it might be that you're a 5 dog a day person, and we teach roles and tiers, and that's how we create incentives for people to learn. So like for me, if I have somebody and again, we teach the groomer point system, which is a trademarked thing. So don't let other people steal my shit. I'm pretty pissed off that people are trying to steal it. Not happy. But in the groomer point system, we would say 5 small dogs a day is 10 points. So 2 points for that. Now, if they have a bather, they then have to groom more dogs because it's 1 point for the bath and prep, 1 point for the haircut, basically. So it's 10 points a day. Let's say they want to raise. I'm like, no problem. Here is the next role and tier. So if you groom more dogs per day, I will give you an hourly wage raise. There you go, right? And that takes the pressure off of me because I can say, hey, this is how you make more money. And on the flip side, it lets them know, hey, if you want to get faster, then we can definitely get you more money, right? And this is ways that we create in a healthy way, right? It's not like, oh, if you work hard, somewhere down the line, magically there's going to be things like, all right, well, you're grooming 5 dogs a day. That's 10 points. That gets X amount of dollars per hour. If we always teach a points bonus system. So like if you want to add more points, you'd be able to make more money. But anyway, so like there's lots of things there. But really what's important there is that, again, we're saying, here you go, right? If you want to grow, here you go. Here is how you grow. Everyone's the same. There's no discrimination. If you want more money, this is how you do it, right? And you can make different benefits too for different tiers, but that's a different conversation. But again, I need to make sure that by growing that way and making it a point that employee knows the way they're going to grow, and I'm not manipulating them into working harder and then resenting me. This person was saying, I know it makes it so hard for small business trying to grow the right legal way. I just can't compete, and I believe everyone deserves a good wage, and I'm more than happy to pay great for the right person, right? So this is tough too, right? Because we say things like this, like, oh, for the right person. So basically, if I'm punching above my weight, then I'm willing to invest more in you. Right. This reminds me of guys that are like, oh yeah, like I'm just feeling things out. I'm seeing my options. But I would totally get in a relationship for the right person. Right. It's like, so what you're saying is that if you're punching above your weight, if they are more, like if you know that they are above and beyond what you quote unquote should have, right? And then you're willing to invest more in them. And again, that doesn't feel good either, right? Because again, what if I'm not the right person? What if I'm just an okay person? What if you're an okay employer and I'm just an okay employee? Then do I deserve less than somebody who's higher? Yeah. But it's also, how do I then become that person, right? We need to quantify that. For instance, if they're like, if you have these skill sets and this production, then you get this money. And again, that's where I really love the way that we teach in the pay masterclass, in the manage masterclass, in the hire masterclass. I love how we teach the different roles and tiers and how to do that. Because again, it's not the right person. It's like, this is what I pay this role and tier. This is what baby groomers make. If they groom 5 dogs a day, this is what they get paid. If you groom, let's say for easy math, 10 dogs a day, this is what you get. This is the hourly wage. If you groom 15, no one's groomed 15 dogs, but let's say 15 dogs a day, this is what you get. This is what you get paid. Now you don't have to be the magical unicorn right person. Now you get to just say, what would you like? Do you want to groom 5 dogs a day and get less money? It's very reasonable. Do you want to groom 10 dogs a day and make this much more money? And then the employee can make that decision, right? The employee can say, I'd rather work less and make less an hour. And that is also going to solve employee burnout. I told someone once, if you want to attract a good partner, you must become a person a good partner would be with. You can't get what you don't offer. I agree. I think so many employers are doing the bare minimum. And I'm not saying that 5 years ago, you'd be ahead of the curve, right? It's kind of like the grooming salon, right? 10 years ago, if you weren't using Dawn, you were using good quality products. Now, if you say I use good quality products, well, what is that? Because, Petco used to say Esprit was good, high quality products, right? What is that? But you definitely need to decide what it is that makes you a good potential partner as their employer. But I do think sometimes we do that, right? But I can't offer more than others to begin with. And no, you can't. But remember, just like in dating, and here's my dating analogy, you don't have to be rich to find love. You can be really funny, which to me would be like a really amazing company culture. I think we really underestimate the value of having a kick-ass company culture. You could be an amazing boss. Now, not everyone cares about that. Just because you're a good boss doesn't mean that people are going to magically love it, right? There's always those, like, I don't want to call them gold diggers, but if their number one priority is money, just same in a relationship. If like, I won't date somebody who makes less than 6 figures, there's no amount of funny, lovely, et cetera, that's going to change that person's mind. Same thing in an employer situation. Right. But you could have this amazing company culture where they're like, you know what, I'm going to make less money, but I'm not stressed out. Or it could be flexibility, right? Where you're like, there are companies, right? And again, you can't do it at like 2 or 3 employees. But when you get up to like 5 to 10, you might have super flexible times off because there's enough people, right, to spread that out. And you can't offer that now, and you really don't want to say in the future, right? Because that's not fair, right? But you could say things along the lines of like, hey, once you have 5 or 10 employees, like, hey, if your kid's sick and you need to call out, if you want to go away for the weekend to a dog show, like we have enough employees that we can spread those grooms around, right? And that again is then you can align with that long-term person. It's just a matter of what it is that makes you special. And again, what I feel like makes me special in the dating world, right, is that I am an ambitious person. I have overcome a lot of things. And not, it's funny because I get a lot of red pill hate, which is so crazy. Um, I can't even explain it. And they're like, don't you know men don't like broken women? Don't you know that you're hit the wall and you're a single mom and your market value is like zero? And I'm like, you know what? That's okay because I just need one. And for me, if it's one of those things that I have to lower my standards and not find the right person, I'm going to be single. And I think a lot of us hire someone who, because we're afraid we're not going to find anyone, right? And then we're stuck in these employee relationships that are super toxic, right? And as an employer, you do have to make those decisions. Would you rather build your business alone, wisely, carefully? Or do you want to throw someone in your life that you're going to build your life with that may or may not leave? And you are going to have higher turnover, right? In this dating analogy, if I just went on 3 dates because I didn't want to have, I didn't want to have to like meet a lot of people. And then I like get in a relationship with that person and we don't really know each other super well. And, we're just trying this out, but we're trying to build a life together. It would blow up my face. You would tell me, oh my God, I would not be trying to build a life with somebody till you've been together at least 6 months, right? If not a year, if not like super committed, right? And I think that's the thing too, in this analogy. If you have your employee, right? You're just dating, right? You're just in, at any point, either one of you two can leave. You're not married, right? Anytime, if this doesn't work out, you can leave, right? And you're not building a life together. You're saying, hey, while this is working, this is great. We're both enjoying each other. And eventually it might be that you want to start a business with them or whatever. But most of the time, we just want to enjoy that healthy dating dynamic, right? That like, if this isn't working for you, you can leave. If this isn't working for me, I can leave. So I think that's incredibly important. And again, get a good, so this brings me back to thinking maybe a student would be good so I can get a good one who is starting out and wanting to grow. So again, we're putting a lot of pressure on someone, right? We're putting a lot of pressure on someone to be the right one, right? Instead of being like, you know what? I love to teach, so I'm going to teach. And if I happen to find the right student, great. That's a totally different energy than I need to find an employee and I'm going to just throw all my investment into this person. And again, sometimes you're going to be really aligned with these students and they're going to want to work for you. And sometimes you're going to take somebody, you're going to try them out and they're going to suck. But that's just like dating. You're going to go out for a few dates and they may be good and they may not be good. I feel like it's impossible in our area to be lucky enough to find an established bather groomer. Again, no one's unemployed. If no one is unemployed, then why would you find then you have to pull someone from their current job. And if you're offering them basically, right, what they already have, why would they do that? I guess I don't have too much to lose by giving a hope. Yeah, absolutely. But the most important thing is to invest, right? And I do see other people mentioning like they're using different programs and things like that to find students that they're going to train up and they're going to invest in these people. You know, they think it's an easy job. They don't even want to finish blow drying a big dog. I'll get one good student out of every 5. That's very normal. It's very normal. I think what's hard in our industry is for whatever reason, we think magically we're going to find somebody, like every person who wants to try out grooming is going to like it. Right? That's such a weird dynamic that we have. Why do we think that everyone who's going to want to try grooming is going to like it? especially when they haven't done anything with it. It's not like, yeah, no, da 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 da. And people mention horse girls. You've heard me talk about horse girls before. People that have been in the horse world tend to make very good grooming employees. Why is that? Because they're already used to getting dirty and kicked and bit, right? They're already used to working physically demanding jobs for very little pay. That's true. Or, they're always looking for money because horses be expensive, right? I think, again, I see a lot of comments really quickly about work ethic. And I think that's a really slippery slope. Because, again, we talk about that in the higher master class, and we've talked about it before. What is a good work ethic to you? And why do you care? If I do my job, then why do you care about my work ethic? So we need to stop thinking about how hard you're willing to work, and do you complete the task in the amount of time and to the standard that I require. Because too often we're judging people based upon how they view work instead of saying, okay, did they finish the job? Did they do a good job? Did they do it to the standard I've asked? Right? That's all I care about. The fact that they're not ambitious is good. You don't want ambitious employees. You don't want employees who work really hard. Stop, look around and say, why am I doing this for this person? Why would you want those people? Those are the people that are going to go and open their own shops. Now, I'm all for people opening their own shops. Obviously, those are my demographics. Those are my students. That said, you are unintentionally getting these people who are going to leave you. It's like this crazy cycle that I see over and over again where, again, right? It's just that, right? It's really hard. So that's my rant. Does anyone have any questions about employees or any of this particular topic before I get going? Thank you for letting me rant out all I have to rant. I would, like I said, tomorrow we are going to be doing the monthly happy hour. And I think that this, again, hopefully should spark some of you guys, little nuggets of stuff. But if not, don't worry about it. I already have my first question, which is awesome. I love when I have questions before I start that up. But yeah, I'm excited for you. Yeah. I think it'll all work out. So anyway, guys, it was so wonderful to see you. And as always, happy grooming.